Yeah, so I think that we need to learn to control our negative emotions if we're going to become better communicators as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So there's some connection between focusing on your own negative emotions and the sensations they create in your body and having a more successful conversation by the end. The other person still might not know how to manage their emotions, okay? So I'm actually going based off of things I've actually been doing recently and talking with people. It's something that I've noticed. If there are two people that are an emotional trigger for each other and neither of them knows how to manage their emotions very well, you can guarantee that conversation's not going to go well, okay? So that's kind of like one sense. So they both don't know how to manage their emotions and they're having a conversation. That's a recipe for disaster, okay? There's another scenario. One of them is learning how to manage their emotions and the other person still doesn't know how to do it, right? Mm-hmm. What I've seen happen is obviously the person who doesn't do it is already in a tiff. The person they're talking to is already an emotional trigger for them because every other time they talk, it's not a really good conversation, right? The other person who is learning to manage their emotions starts doing well at first. But when the other person doesn't give them what they expect in that feedback, they start to not manage their
regress back.
Right. So it really is like you have to stay on top of it. It's something you have to reoccurringly do throughout the conversation. And then by the end, you'll notice that the other person was calmer. I'm not going to say they didn't get excited or angry at you, but you'll notice overall it goes better for you, the conversation.
Do you think, is it your opinion that let's say there's a dialogue between two people.
Yeah.
And you happen to be the one who manages emotion better. Mm-hmm. Are you more responsible for the way that conversation goes? Do you possess a greater burden of responsibility in maintaining, let's say, a state of peace?
Yes.
Or a harmony in the dialogue with someone?
Yes.
Or is that unfair? Well,
no.
Regardless of fairness, is it?
Yeah. Fairness is irrelevant in this scenario. So
I quickly disagreed with myself as soon as I said that. I was like, it doesn't matter. But I'm
yeah.
curious about your opinion on the responsibility.
When I go into a conversation and it doesn't go well, I feel culpable to some extent that it didn't go well. I feel partially responsible. Okay? So to me, I am still responsible if it doesn't go generally well, I guess you could say, right? Or actually, no, let me take that back. Let me take that back just real quick. Actually, the way that this goes, I think, is let's say the conversation doesn't go quote unquote well, okay? I could have been managing my emotions really well, and the other person just is not prepared for that conversation. They haven't figured out how to manage their emotions themselves. And so I guess really if you're talking to somebody that really doesn't know how to manage their emotions in a conversation, regardless of who that is, it's probably not going to go too well. But what I've noticed is I've had experiences with people in the past where the conversations didn't go well. I've learned to manage my emotions, and now I notice they just go a lot better. The other person by the end of the conversation seems calmer. They seem way better off. And also, it's very interesting. They actually also seem more. They seem like they want to continue the conversation, or they want to have another conversation with me recently after, because it makes them feel good. Because I knew how to manage my emotions, they feel better when they're talking to me, and so that makes them want to talk to me more. I think there's something to that, right? So you really have to get it out of your head that you can manage the other person's emotions. You really can't do that. They have to manage their own emotions, but by managing your own emotions and focusing on yourself, you will get more positive feedback over time, regardless of whether that person knows very strongly how to control their own emotions.
The people that you're talking with, are you under the assumption that they're generally just around, they're in environments where the conversations usually drift towards some type of negative aspect in terms of the dialogue that could be confrontational or some level of irritation or aggressiveness or just general negativity, and so they're not used to having conversation without conflict? Is that what you're talking about?
So you just brought up a good point. It wasn't what was going on in my head, but you brought up a good separate point. which is that generally there are people that have heavy issues with communicating with people. They have negative experiences with people and when they're communicating, and that would be the reason why. Because every time they talk to someone, it's a trigger for them because they have gotten so used to communication being a negative thing for them that they're trained. They're trained now that, oh, this is a negative thing. Your brain responds to you, you know?
Yeah.
What I was thinking of was, so I am aware, and we won't mention any names in this, but I am aware of a relationship between a mother and a son, okay? Not me, by the way, just so we're clear there, okay? Between a mother and a son, and they have heavy communication issues, okay? And one of these people has really started to see what they need to see, okay? I can tell that they're improving, right? I can tell that they've now understood, oh, I really have to learn to manage my negative emotions. This isn't helping me, right? And they engaged in this conversation with this person that usually does not go well with the other person. Okay, this is the son is actually the one that has started to learn, and the mother is the one who I think might not be there yet. Okay. So the son is managing his emotions, and the mother is still responding in the old mindset. So in her head, this is my son who this conversation usually goes negatively. So what mindset am I in? I'm in a negative mindset, right? So it doesn't matter that he's giving her positive feedback at first, because the second he starts to get excited, right? The son forgets, oh, I have to manage my emotions. He makes it about the mother again. And the fact that she's always angry when I talk to her.
So something that we've actually addressed, and I mean, it seems like the last couple podcasts we've done have been about negative emotions. But if you go back further in like our library, if you want to call that, of episodes, we've actually talked about on a couple occasions about how conversations are not just one singular interaction. They're a culmination of interactions that occur across time. So if you develop a pattern of negative conversation or negative interaction with someone, if you try to insert, some level of improvement in that, so you start recognizing why conversations between you and another person go wrong, and you implement solutions to prevent that in the future. It could be that between you and that person, when you do have new conversations with them that are extensions of old conversations, you are waiting for a regression,
continuation.
Yeah, or someone to give up on having, a good conversation or a positive conversation. So you're waiting for that switch to go back to the negative.
Yeah.
So you operate in a state of defensiveness to where you might be prepared to lash out or to go back to that because you don't want to be the weak one. It becomes a matter of strength.
But that is so strange, though, because if you manage your emotions, you aren't the weak one. That's the strange part. That's the part that I told you, like, I've been talking about this negativity. There's something strange to me about it, and that is... And again, it's just a matter of accepting you can't control the other person's emotions, but it seems like sometimes, no matter how positive I am, the other person still really struggles with emotions.
Here's my suspicion as to why it feels that way, because I agree with you that if you're the one managing your negative emotions, you're actually the one that's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But you introduced this idea at the beginning of this episode about how there's something archaic happening to us, and that's how we handle our negative emotions. So victory has to occur in that moment, or a feeling that you have a win.
Yeah.
In that moment, because your brain doesn't register a victory like after an occurrence, like in time.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've addressed too, is in our recent podcast about feelings of gratification in an instant.
Yes.
So you want that feeling of strength in the moment.
Yes.
Because the other person might perceive you as being weak if you back down from an insult.
Yes.
Or some statement of dominance.
Yes.
And so it doesn't feel good to restrain yourself, even though that might maintain the health of the relationship in the long run, which is why people will cut you down in a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that
So
make sense?
no, it makes perfect sense. To catch the listeners up just a little bit, we were talking about when we were talking about archaic emotions. That was in a previous edit, but the idea is essentially that a lot of the way that we understand these emotions, these negative emotions, is really archaic in terms of we don't really need them anymore, or we have a very poor understanding of them because of our evolutionary history. So because we were primed in certain environments that we need a high level of anxiety, we really can't understand why we don't need that anymore. And if we want to advance as a species, we need to recognize we don't need that much anxiety anymore. Maybe a little anxiety is okay, maybe a little depression. I don't know. I have a hard time with anxiety and depression. I can still think of ways we need anger or a lot of other negative emotions, but anxiety and depression's hanging on by a thread at this point for me. And so I think we need a reframing of those negative emotions for us if we really want to understand how our emotions work in a modern setting today. So now, and then what was the last point you made there? Because there was something else that I had to say about that.
You're referring to like wins in conversation in terms of instant gratification?
Yes. So, and yes, that is the other thing too. Yeah. I tend to feel like my conversations are more successful. I don't feel like I have too many negative conversations. So let's go back to that scenario. This is the important part. Yes. It is an illusion that you lose control by controlling your negative emotions. We have some fiending for our negative emotions, and I'm trying to figure that out. Because when I start to talk too much about people and their negative emotions, I get some type of initial negative visceral reaction from them where they view it as negative to not have those negative emotions. And the reality is, if you get rid of your anger while the other person is angry at you, you are in a better position to defend yourself than that person is. So you are not weaker by getting rid of your anger. You are stronger. That is an illusion that you have, that you are stronger by holding on to your anger. It's an illusion. Okay, it's the same with a lot of other negative emotions.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah.
So you often talk about perception. The perception of things is sometimes better in terms of like it's better to believe.
Yeah, it's not so much what you believe as what.
Right. Okay. So you know where I'm going with this.
Yes.
This illusion that you're talking about is believed by most people.
Right.
At least in the heat of the moment. I mean, it's almost like you're almost talking about controlling our animal side. Because when you do get in a heated conversation, you almost become more primal.
In some ways,
you start if you're not managing your emotions, it's very easy to sink into that.
Yeah.
But I guess people think that is the reality, or I'm trying to say that the illusion of being in control through anger is believed by most people because that's how you get someone to respond to you.
Yeah.
That's why people use
negatively.
Anger. Yeah, but that's why people so often use anger as an accomplishment to get something from.
Yeah.
You know, it could be a company that they need information from.
And this is, again, where I would go back to, I think these emotions are archaic, where you're telling yourself you really need this emotion for this, and you don't need it so much. I'm not saying you don't need negative emotions. Negative emotions, if you're in a positive mindset, are great because they remind you of something. They are communicating to you. The idea that you need them after that initial information that they're giving you is the illusion. Once you notice you're angry, that's all the information you need. Once you notice that you're angry, you know, okay, I'm angry. I need to focus on it. Okay, it's gone. I know why I was angry, and now I can deal with it. Okay, so it's the idea that I need to hold on to those emotions that is the illusion. You just stop holding on to them. Okay, and again, that's why I said, like, it's like a fiending. It's like a drug. Like, we're so hopped up on it that when we see it start to go away, we grip it for some reason when we don't need to. We don't need to. It's not going to help us. So again, somebody comes up to you and they call you a dickhead, you're probably going to have, it's a normal human response to feel anger based off of that, right? But what you want to do, because if somebody calls you a dickhead, like, aggressively, that's usually a sign that they might be about to attack you, right? So you really need that information. Okay, I feel it. It's gone. What do I do next? I need to pay attention to this person. I need to make eye contact. I need to see where their body is, right? You can't do that if you're angry. You really can't. You're gonna start thinking. You're gonna get inside your own head, and the wheels are gonna start turning. And if you have no fighting skills, you're gonna get really messed up. So again, controlling your emotions is just always the thing to do. It's not that negative emotions don't come. It's not that they're quote unquote all bad. It's that we have some primitive attachment to them that we need to reframe as a species. And it really is just as simple as, I'm fine if I feel anxious. I'm fine if I feel angry. I'm fine if I feel a lot of emotions. I'm not fine if I continue to perpetuate those emotions. I'm not fine, nor should I be. So I feel anger. I feel a lot of other emotions like a lot of other people. But once I notice it, I'm done with it and I'm ready to do something else. That is the real, to me, just real quick, to me, that is the real person in control. That is the alpha in that situation.
Yeah. To play off that, and again, playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about different kind of cultures and how they respond, how people in those cultures respond to different things. How do you take your ideas and navigate around sources of pride or respect? So let's say someone says something negative to you, and on the face of things, you just let it slide past you, which is better for you. He's like, okay, that insult really doesn't demonstrate anything about myself or you, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
But going back to perceptions, other people perceive that you are now like
the weak one,
or on the totem pole. And if those perceptions are true enough that the behaviors around you change,
yeah,
because of you managing your emotions and not responding to something like that, that could introduce some difficult
future issues later down.
Yes.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this. We can't go too far down this road because it gets kind of conspiratorial for me, so I won't go down it now.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. We'll talk about it a little bit after the show.
Yeah, cool.
I need to be critical of the thoughts before I take them too seriously.
Okay, so okay, you're sorting out what you actually think about this still. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, we can explore it from a side path or something.
Okay, all right.
But
for now, what I'll say though is, again, that's on them. Like, if you perceive me as weak because someone insulted me and I was nonplussed when it happened.
Yeah.
Then you try to challenge me. I don't know. Like, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
It's on you and your emotions, but I know what my role is. So view me any way you want. I do not care because my emotions are on me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, someone once just like, well, I think you're weak, I'm going to fight you. And I'm be like, all right, well, I guess I got to manage my emotions and get through this. So let's go. Like, and then we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I'm not saying I will come out on top. I'm literally saying we'll see who comes out on top. If you think that holding on to your anger is better than me not.
Yeah, you don't mean it in some kind of cocky way.
Right.
Like, we'll see. You mean it as like, we don't know.
Yeah. I could lose that fight with a really angry person and be like, damn, I really do need anger now. I'm going to be angry all the time. Or I'm going to get through it and have bested you and be like, nope, you still had issues and you didn't realize it. And now I still get to be happy with the rest of my life. Like, we need to stop allowing life to convince us that we have to be miserable and angry and anxious. We do not have to be these things. We choose to be them after the initial thing that happens, after the initial push or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that's just my perspective. And it's weird because, like, the response that I get when I usually talk to people about this is almost nothing. Like, it's complete silence. Like, people don't know what to say to it. And I feel
when you're introducing this topic?
Yes, when I'm talking about controlling your negative emotions, I'll post something on Facebook or I'll make a guided meditation, which I've done a bunch now, right? And I get almost no feedback or response from people. And I don't know, but I think the reason is people are still like contending with it. They're not exactly sure what I'm saying or how to understand it because it's foreign and new. I think. I don't know. Or I just suck. I'm fine with either one. I'll figure something else out.
Yeah.
But that is a very strange reaction to me, that it's not, because like it's actually not that strange when I sit down and think about it just being a human, I think. Because when somebody else is happy and you're really not, there's going to be possibly an initial like envy, you know?
Yeah, so envy, resentment. I mean,
Yeah.
all those emotions arise. I mean, it is frustrating to see someone who's, if you're not in control of your emotions, it can be frustrating to be like, man, this guy's like
Yeah.
got it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't. And
Yeah.
if you're not careful, that can like start putting like dark thoughts in your head if you're
Yes.
if you're not managing yourself well.
And oddly enough, if the
or
other
you
person
lack
isn't careful,
perspective. Yeah.
which was what you were saying earlier, right? Like,
Yeah.
what if people become really hostile? They feed off that, and again, I think that might happen on some level, which is kind of scary to me. But I've told you before, I've already decided what I'm doing with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's what I choose to do, even unto death, because life is a lot better when you do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that our societal conditions allow us to have this conversation. I don't know that we could take these ideas and implant them in a more like volatile environment, just because of the predatory nature of other people.
Yeah.
That would work. I don't know.
Yeah,
But it might be that people like that in volatile environments help keep some level of stability amongst the chaos.
Yeah.
That might be the case too. And I really just don't know because I lack the experience of seeing those things demonstrated.
Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat.
volatile environments.
Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat with you on that too. I do want to clarify here though that so I'm not saying that what I'm saying works in every context, but I am saying that I think so. You were talking about the predatory nature, right, of hostile environments, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it is so easy. I think we're confusing weakness with peace, and that's the issue too, is because they can look similar to us. So recognize that just because you seem not angry doesn't mean you're at peace, and it is not easy. Okay, it is not easy to prey on a peaceful person. Okay, it's easy to prey on a weak person. So what I'm saying is,
that's a good distinction. Yeah.
So if you are in that environment, you still want to be able to manage your negative emotions. You still want to, if you're feeling anger, something blew up next to you. You're gonna be shocked and angry and a bunch of negative emotions. You need to be able to feel them in your body, dissipate, and like do the next thing you need to do. Move out of the building, right? And if you don't do that, there's another missile coming right behind it. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So you want to even be able to do this in that environment. Because again, and now you're just like, well, I don't know. It's just this weird association where we're just like, well, what if the person doesn't make it? Well, then I guess they don't make it, but they're still better off managing their negative emotions to do what they have to do.
I think that was a good distinction that you made between peace and weakness. I think maybe you might be right that we were doing that, or not making it clear enough that there's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
And I guess, like I said, my concern would be the narrative that other people around you would determine that you might actually be peaceful and in control of yourself and strong.
Yeah.
But the narrative might be told that you're weak.
Yeah.
In
their negative emotion.
Yes.
They're going to tell themselves an incorrect narrative in their heads because of their negative emotion. That absolutely can happen.
But the fear, for yourself would be that you would start to believe the narrative of others.
Right.
And then you start doubting yourself. So you have to keep that in check as well.
Yeah, so
you know the difference.
Yep. Yeah, and it seems like you can't do it for forever, which is probably true. There's going to be a moment in your life where something's going to come at you so quickly that you're going to forget, I just need to manage my emotions. And I think that's like akin to death or whatever. But the point is, it's still good up until that moment to live a good life. So just up until that moment, just expect for now you're probably going to die. Like, like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't have the key to life yet. So for now you are going to die, but it's okay as long as from this moment on to that moment, your life is better. You have a net win, because if you had stayed in the negative emotion just until death, it would have been a net loss. You would have lost out on happiness you could have had and contentment. So I mean, if somebody wants to, that is an issue where somebody who's in a negative mindset, wants to look at a peaceful person and say, I think they might be weak.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know how. I think they can do it, but I don't think they're going to challenge. I think you might look at a person and be like, they're weak. I think something in you knows that's not true, and you're not going to go mess with that person. I think that's another insecurity thing, because usually I think peace recognizes peace. So if that person was in a peace, calm state of mind, they're going to be able to tell that you're also peaceful, and they're not going to want to mess with you anyway. So, but if you're really looking at somebody and they're intimidating, they might not be weak. They might actually just be peaceful, and you should watch out.
Yeah.
Unless you're like really skilled, then you might be able to kill them anyway. Then I guess make a decision.
Yeah, we've been kind of we've been alluding to how a conversation can go from bad to violent, and I don't know if that's because we're males and we just kind of understand that anything can end up there.
Yeah.
But obviously
from certain things too. Like, so we're males, and we're also like, we grew up in households where we saw very strong-headed males, right?
Yeah.
So that is our perspective.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, things don't have to be like rainbows and butterflies. Like, they can get really bad really quickly.
That doesn't exist for most people.
Some females know that too, but we're just saying, you know, that's just our perspective. I don't know, probably don't know what to say but that.
Yeah.
But
I was just trying to get to the point that the advice that you're trying to convey to anybody who would be listening we're not talking about just conversations that could end up down the road in some measure of violence or physical confrontation. We're just talking about conversation in general, that when you're talking to someone, maintaining control of your emotions can produce an overall better conversation with someone.
Yep.
And that could be in debate or in conversation about something that begins with a disagreement. And you can see it all the time, particularly obviously with politics. If you're talking about something that you disagree with someone, if you as an outsider, like I noticed it when in our last conversation with Chris, none of us were arguing in terms of like we're mad at each other.
Yeah.
But you could see, if you go back and listen, you can watch the excitement, like the volume in our voices goes up and up and up, because we're inserting our passion into what we're saying rather than just like reasoning out.
Yeah.
And maybe you weren't doing that. I think I was doing that.
I always accept the fact, again, it's not about, to me, avoiding responsibility. So like I accept the fact that certainly negative emotions came in that conversation, and I forgot to manage my negative emotions. Probably. I can think of one instance where, and this was off the air, thank God. So, but he had made a comment, and I thought that he was making a comment about transgender people, and he wasn't even talking about transgender people. And it took me a second to like catch myself and be like, oh, he was talking about something else. Yeah. And then I moved on. You know what I mean? So it happens. Yeah. But we're just talking about an overall, right? I mean, yeah. And I think this might even been like a great first episode, because I feel like now we have like what we feel like we need to do, right, from here on out with this show, which is really just to talk to different people, manage our negative emotions while we're doing it, and see what that produces for us, you know, which I expect great things myself, but, you know, that's something that only time can tell. And
I try to be I try to be cognizant of my emotions and my opinions when we're doing the show, because I'm always concerned that I might say something that I don't actually mean, just because it's kind of like stream of consciousness. So I'm just saying what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So I always try to be careful about that when we're like doing the podcast, because I don't want to ever like look back when I'm looking at some of the shows that we do and be like, I don't actually think that, but it's there now.
Do you get the feeling that sometimes I'm more cavalier with that?
That you just kind of stream of conscious?
Yeah, that really, I may not be paying as much attention to the validity of what I'm saying first before it comes out.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to sit and it'd be like dead air for 5 minutes if I had to sit and like really think about that. I don't know that that's I would say that I don't think so. I would say that you're probably better at it than anybody else that we do the show with.
Okay.
I think
I feel that way sometimes. So that's why I was saying it, because
you feel like you're more cavalier.
Not recently, but I feel like I've been cavalier in the past. Yeah. And I know what that means. Yeah. So, but
you mean reckless with your words in terms of like,
you don't manage your emotions before the next thing comes out, right? Yeah. And that's when you have to remember, focus on your negative emotions. Now say what's on your mind. Focus on your negative emotions. Now say what's on your mind.
Mm.
Don't, if you let those negative emotions get on top of it, they're going to start painting your conversation for you. So, but you just can't, like, we're too stupid to be right all the time, you know? Like, everybody is. We're all too dumb to be right all the time. You can't just go around walking on eggshells. And this is where conservatives are right about something. Like, sometimes they're wrong in that they seem to have a fear of critique, in my opinion. They're right in that they need, like, you need to accept the fact that you shouldn't be so afraid to be wrong. Like, you're going to be wrong. Somebody points it out and you correct yourself, right? So it's not the getting past your mistakes. It's not the, you know, because again, this has to do with perspective too. But when somebody makes an error, we tend to, again, paint our emotions onto that thing. So it's just like, oh, they need to feel really, really bad, right? When the reality is that's not, if you think that's what you want them to do, you're not thinking critically. Really what you want them to do is to manage their emotions and change their mind. That's what you actually want, right? So I don't want them to feel bad so much. I want them to get an initial feeling of badness, because that's what happens when you make an error, which is completely fine, you know? But I want them to get past that and move on so we can get to, like, the actual conversation validity, and if they are wrong, changing their minds. I don't think that happens when they're in negative emotions. I think that happens when they're in a peaceful state.
Yeah, I'd want to expand the conversation now to this. I mean, we've kind of isolated this to personal interaction. You're talking about managing negative emotion and behavior. But this is also a solid leadership trait too, right? So, I mean, we see on the national stage, a lot of our national leaders, and I'm talking kind of in general. I mean, I know that people listening to this are going to draw to very specific, like, people.
Yeah.
And they might have opinions about that. But managing your emotions is a solid leadership trait. So we see on the national stage this escalation between leaders in both the Democratic and Republican Party, escalation of trying to one-up each other rather than managing their emotions and their conduct and bringing it down to a more a level where they can diplomatically work together. And this is causing problems, like, with the way that government functions. And so if these personal traits existed as strengths in some of our leaders, government would function better. I mean, government is not just about how things are structured in a legal way. I mean, it plays largely in part due to the personalities that exist within that structure. I mean, no amount of law,
no doubt,
legislation will create a perfect environment to where people have to behave well.
Yeah.
And if you introduce these personal strengths like managing negative emotion and behavior, you get a better you get a better product from the people who are in leadership positions, and we don't see that right now.
Yeah. I think we're in full agreement there, and I think probably our audience could fully agree with that. You know, like you were saying, they might have certain people in their heads, but we really need to recognize that, like, everybody can improve on this.
Well, this is I'm not, the reason I'm not naming names is, one, because it's too easy, but two, because they're not the only, the obvious people that we would be talking, you know, say Trump or whatever.
Yes.
Is not just him.
Right.
If people only gain influence by the people around them who are willing to grant or deny support, which is an indication to me that those traits that someone like him also lack in the people that grant him influence.
We agree 100. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and the same exists for individuals in the Democratic Party.
Yes, it does. Yes. But now that we're saying that, I do want to I just want to have a more honest conversation. Okay. So, like, if you were going to rank, you know, presidential candidates. Okay. So let me throw a couple at you. Trump and Hillary. Who do you think's better at managing their negative emotions?
I would say that Clinton on TV is better.
Comes off as more composed.
Comes off as more composed. I don't
Okay.
know that exists in the background, though,
Right. That's a fair point.
based on anecdotal evidence.
For sure. Yeah, that's a fair
Which
point.
isn't evidence.
Well,
but
and then I probably already know this. I probably already know this as well. But Trump or Bernie.
Bernie.
Okay. Yeah, and that's usually, I think then now that we're talking about that, it becomes apparent to me who I gravitate towards.
Hmm.
And who we gravitate towards. We gravitate towards people who know how to manage their negative emotions, and we tend to repel people who don't know how to manage their negative emotions.
Yeah, and it's because judgment is a leadership factor, and if you manage your emotions better, it's more likely that you are going to have stronger judgment skills related to the decisions that you have to make as a leader.
Right.
Because if you make decisions based on your emotional state that you're in the present, the decision that you're going to make is going to be different than if you were in a more calm state of mind as opposed to aggressive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and this can go into, other people that we've come to admire or what have you. Not that they don't have flaws as humans, right? But I mean, when you talk about like somebody like Jocko Willing or David Goggins, what really separates them is they know how to manage their negative emotions in extreme scenarios.
Yeah, but they're a good point because they both know how to use aggressiveness in a smart way.
Yeah.
And in a controlled way.
Yeah.
And if you can't manage your aggressiveness and use it in a useful way, or not useful but positive.
Yeah,
because,
that's good.
Because people can negatively use aggressiveness and it be useful to them or to people around them, which is why it gets used.
Right.
I mean, because it is useful.
Yeah.
That's why that exists.
That was a good observation there.
But men like Jocko Willink and David Goggins use their aggressiveness
as far as we can tell positively.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as we can tell positively.
By all measures. And
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, they do still come off as like pretty aggressive to me, but I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means anything,
It's relevant to the world that they function in.
It is.
I mean, you have to be aggressive if you're, a military leader in units like that Jocko was in, or David Goggins. He wasn't a career SEAL, but
yeah. David, what about between those two? Because to me, well, let me get your answer first. Which one would you say is better at managing their negative emotions, Jocko Willings or David Goggins?
I know, I pay attention to Jocko more.
Oh, okay.
Like I've learned a lot of leadership skills myself from him, and I would take. When I was doing some of the wilderness work out west, I would take a lot of his traits and try to reteach them to some of the students I had. But I don't know who's better at it. I know Jocko better based on I gain more content from him than David Goggins.
Yeah,
I think their approaches. I think okay. Here's a distinction. I think based on what I know, David Goggins is more centered on control of the self, and he more deals with himself as an individual, where Jocko focuses more on not just the individual, but functioning in a team environment.
In groups. That's a great observation right there.
So
yeah, that's perfect. That was a perfect observation. Yeah,
and you can get useful information from both of those guys, but I mean, generally, most of us work in a team environment. So
yeah, that's true too. I think there's something to be gained from both. I think when I first started watching David Goggins, that's what something about what he was doing was like, there's something there. I know what it is, but I can't put my finger on it. And eventually I figured it out. Oh, he really manages the negative emotions when he's getting up in the morning to run or do this and that. He's just really good at it, doing those things. Right? He might not be so good if he's not paying attention to it in other contexts, right? So if you really want to be a complete person, you really should try to do it in a bunch of different contexts. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a different conversation for a different podcast for me. So,
okay.
What about you? How do you feel? Got any other badass observations to make? Got any other observations to make
about David Goggins or Jocko Willink? I don't
just
know.
Period. Just for the.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right. Well, it was great having everybody. I hope you stayed to the end. And as always, we're interested to know what you think. So reach out to us if you like what you heard or you agree or disagree. All right. Have a nice night.